So again, we're trying to measure the total surplus that's generated in the economy. We've discussed the consumer side, and now we're about to discuss the producer side. So here's our market for bread with quantity and price and our upward sloping supply curve. What is the benefit that producers get from this market? Well, what do producers get? They get the price at which they sold the bread. But of course, making the bread wasn't free. There was some opportunity cost or marginal cost of producing the bread. There was some extra cost that the producer had to put in place in order to make the loaf of bread and sell it. For example, this could be the cost of flour, the cost of labor to make the bread, the time it takes to go ahead and sell the bread. Whatever these costs are, the producer gets the price of bread minus these costs of production. So one way of thinking about this is thinking about the supply curve as reflecting the marginal cost of production, where the marginal cost of production is the cost of producing the additional unit. And we assume that the marginal cost is increasing because we know we have increasing opportunity costs of production. So that producing the first loaf of bread is going to be relatively cheap because we use the resources that are really good at producing bread. And producing a lot of bread, that last unit of bread is going to be very expensive because once we get to produce that bread, we have to use a very inefficient resource. For example, we'd have to use me as a baker, and that wouldn't be a very efficient worker to be hiring in your kitchen. So we have an upward sloping marginal cost of bread, and there's some sort of an equilibrium price. Again, just for the sake of the example, say that price is $4. What does the seller of the bread get from selling the bread? Well, they get the $4 minus the minimum that was required to sell that loaf of bread. The seller would never sell a loaf of bread at less than the marginal cost. So you can think as the marginal cost as the minimum required to sell the loaf, because if you're not covering that opportunity cost of selling it, you're not going to go ahead and sell it. If you're not going to cover that extra cost, the marginal cost of producing the extra unit, you're not going to sell the extra unit. So this marginal cost curve is the minimum required to sell the loaf of bread. And the producer is getting $4, and as long as $4 is more than the minimum required, the producer is making a little bit extra. And we can go ahead and sum up all these little bits of extra, all these differences between the price and the marginal cost of production, and what we get is the producer surplus. So again, what is the producer surplus? It's the difference between the price and the minimum required to sell the product, which is the marginal cost of production. Graphically, it's the area bound by the price and the supply curve, from the first unit and all the way till the last unit that's exchanged in the market. And that is our producer surplus.